Think Outside the Lines is a space for anyone ready to stop checking boxes, to step off autopilot, and create the life you actually want, with clarity, intention, and alignment. Whether you're questioning the default path, rebuilding from scratch, or just looking to feel a little more like yourself.
I'm Sean. My guest today had the perfect pedigree: Stanford, UC Davis Law, and a powerhouse trial career. Then her body started protesting in a language her mind wasn't ready to hear. We're talking about the reality of listening to your intuition when it tells you to walk away from everything you've built. Join me as we think outside the lines with Kimberly Lee. Well, Kimberly, Stanford, UC Davis Law, a successful trial career, that's the kind of path that looks like everything is figured out. And then your throat starts hurting after every day in court. Not a sore throat, something deeper. Tell us more about your journey. What led you to this moment?
Sure. Well, I went into law, and I think that I always had a creative urgings to write. And I also love to speak in public, which I know a lot of people don't love to do. But as a child, I would give speeches and be in speech contests, or at church there were speeches. And so I think the natural thing for parents to do who want you to have security and they want the best for you is to kind of take those skills and encourage you into something that can get you a good, solid job, something. And so I think that I kind of followed that path, not knowing really or feeling exactly like that was what I wanted to do, but following it and feeling successful to some extent. I was a public defender in downtown Los Angeles, so it was very exciting because I grew up in a small town in the Bay Area of Northern California, Vallejo. And so to come to LA and be working in downtown and in the courts was really exciting. And it seemed very LA law-ish. And so
Totally.
Yeah. And so, I was a baby lawyer kind of handling my little cases, but the O.J. Simpson trial was actually taking place in that same courthouse at that time. So, just on the other extreme from what I was doing, because I was handling the small stuff, but it was just very exciting to be in that realm. And so for the first year, it was fun, and there was lots of other attorneys working with me. We'd all just passed the bar, and we had a big office together, and we'd have one hearing that they would give you to do, and then you'd go to lunch for an hour and a half, and it was a lot of camaraderie. And it seemed like fun and exciting. And then eventually you get sent out to outlying courthouses, and you're given one courtroom to yourself, and you handle everything that comes through that court that is assigned to the public defender. And as time went on, I just really started to realize, and maybe I knew this in law school, like this wasn't really my tribe. It wasn't really my place. It's highly adversarial. You're on all the time. The stakes are high. And so I found myself performing. I was an advocate, a zealous advocate, as you are, we take an oath to be. But I was speaking in a different voice and feeling very tired. My body was kind of telling me this is not our natural state. And I know people associate that with the throat chakra. And so I was kind of learning about chakras, just doing my own reading.
Yeah.
And I was like, something's going on here. I would find myself tearful and just lots of emotions. My parents came down and visited me in court, and they were like, who was that person? Because you really have to become someone else. And
Totally,
I do it. Someone was counting on me to advocate for them. But I was there for 4 years. And during that time, for 3 of the 4 years, I did not really feel like myself. I didn't feel like I was doing my purpose, walking in my purpose. And so I opened my own practice thinking, well, I'll have more control. I'll have flexibility. I can choose my clients. This is the way that I will be happy doing this. And even with all of that freedom and independence, it still wasn't serving me. It was good work, I felt, and those who are still doing it is great work, important work. But for me, I was like, I cannot live out my career, my days, getting up to do this. On Sundays at about 2:00, I'd have this feeling of dread That was not
We all know that feeling.
Yeah, it was Sunday scaries, I think they call it. And I was
Yep.
like, am I going to live out my career for the next 30 or 40 odd years feeling this way? It's not my way of speaking. It's not my way of being, of fighting all the time is what you're doing. And so I just started looking for other ways, other things to do. At the same time, I was becoming a mom. And so it was kind of a natural opportunity for me to take a break from it and focus on being a mom for a bit, and also start to pursue some things that really had called to me from the beginning that I had set aside.
So one of the things that's most fascinating to me is there's a couple things in there. First of all, the O.J. Simpson trial. What an amazing time to be a part of just the court system in Los Angeles. When I was reading about your story and such, I kept coming back to I grew up in the school of Oprah Winfrey. It reminded me of something that she used to always talk about, how the universe is always speaking to us and it starts in whispers and then it eventually becomes a scream, right?
Yes.
And I would love for you to maybe say more about when you first started to realize that, the physical strain was there, but it was also something else that was kind of in the background. Because it seems to me like maybe the universe was trying to speak to you and you were just kind of ignoring it in the beginning.
Absolutely. I was pushing through because even as I felt in law school, I kind of knew, I was like, I don't know if I didn't love the Socratic method. That's not the way I learn, where it's very kind of, they're coming at you with questions. I knew all of those things, but I don't think we're conditioned to listen to that, or kind of conditioned to listen to external voices telling us what's right, what we ought to do, what's the proper path, a standard path, the path to success. But I too am one who I watched a lot of Oprah, read a lot of books she recommended, Ian Vincent also.
Absolutely, yeah.
And I remember reading her book, actually, because she was a public defender herself. And she mentions that in one of her books, and she came in and just felt like the lights were off. And she said, everyone, why are the lights off? But they were on. And so that gave her a sense. And so I remember really relating to that book. And as I read more and more, I have a closet full of books from that part of the bookstore, and was journaling and tuning in. And I just knew, but I wasn't sure what I was going to do. And you also feel like you made this huge investment in this education. And then, it's 2 years in and you don't want to do it anymore. So it's taking, at night, different courses and other things, which really started to take a public relations course at UCLA Extension. I was taking a course on what to do with your law degree if you don't want to practice law. So I was constantly...
I love that that's a course. There's enough people.
There really is. And so I just knew, but it's just hard for many reasons. Also because your identity becomes really tied up in being an attorney. And that's impressive to people at dinner parties and receptions and cocktail fees.
Yeah.
It's really impressive. People immediately grant you all this respect and everything. And so it's also kind of hard to let that go. I mean, I will always be an attorney, that's no one's ever going to take that away from me, but it's not my main identity. But while you are doing it, you identify so heavily with it. And it's hard to let that go and to kind of distance and say, that's not going to be my main thing.
I can imagine the pressure that comes with, pursuing a law degree and then having a law degree and then having a practice and all of those things. And I absolutely don't want to minimize that, but I really do think that what you're talking about is also so universal, because there's so many people that go into professions where they feel the exact same way. And that's part of why I love these conversations, is because we get to kind of talk through some of that. Because there's so many people that your identity, I loved what you said about how your identity just became wrapped up in that. And I remembered what I was thinking about before that struck me when you said that you loved public speaking. I was like, I think you're the first person I've ever met that said you love public speaking, at least out of the gate. I think maybe people learn to love it, but that's such a rare quality, and I love that.
Yeah, it's interesting. I always says I'm always nervous. So it's never like, just saunter up there and speak, no problem. Yeah. Always nervous. And I think that's a good thing. If I'm not nervous, there's a problem. But I do really I think it's because I really love people, and I know people say that a lot, but I love to just look in people's eyes and see all of the, all different folks and interact. So I guess actually what I do more, I would say more so than public speaking, is facilitating workshops. So it's really more interactive rather than me giving speeches. I love to interact and engage. And so it's a thrill.
When your throat was hurting and you were still showing up to court every day, did you talk about this with anyone, or was it something that you kind of carried privately?
I talked about it with my husband.
Okay.
Quite a bit. And but what I found, and he definitely understood, and he was an advocate in me leaving. As I was talking about leaving law, he was like,
I love that.
You need to leave law. And some of it would be, we'd be at dinner like on a Monday night or, some night, or maybe even a weekend. And I just would kind of go into a state of feeling very sad or feeling, just kind of emotional over thinking about all that was on my plate, because it was hard for me to compartmentalize my cases and stop thinking about them. I was always thinking about my clients and what I needed to do for them, and what if this and what if that. The stakes were very high because I didn't want to mess up, because if I messed up, their freedom would be taken. And so it was always on my mind. Like people say, how do you sleep at night? Like I did not sleep really. So I talked to him quite a bit about it. But it was a tough time. It was a tough time. I kept hoping it would get better. I really was hoping that I would find a rhythm that felt natural. And it just never did.
I think it's so great for you, but I think it's also so important to have a supportive partner or supportive anyone in your life, right? Because I think that's why so many people do end up staying stuck in something, is because they don't have that support system in place to, I hate to use the phrase like fall back on, but to at least give you like different perspective or some clarity around like, hey, you're right to be feeling this way, and let's talk about it together. So I love that you had that person in your life. I guess once you started kind of asking what other invisible ways you might be going against the grain of your own nature, what else did you start to notice?
I started noticing that I was showing up right in the nick of time for my court appearances, So I think at the beginning, you'd be there very early and what have you. I was just like dragging myself, getting on the freeway and just rushing and racing every day. It was never a casual, like, get your coffee and have a nice morning. It was kind of, and then as soon as I could leave, I was ready to leave. I was bringing my cases home and working on things, but I just really didn't want to be there. I noticed myself just seeing other people doing other jobs and envying them. Like, oh, I wish I'd talk to other people about other things that they were doing, other, careers, other occupations, and just being so envious that it seemed like their life was easier, or they were enjoying what they were doing. And really, and then also it was just that dread on Sunday afternoon. So it just would creep in.
I kind of had an epiphany while you were talking just now, because I used to do the same thing when I was in the corporate world, right? I would just obviously you dread Mondays, right?
Right.
But I would also like show up late to things, or just on time, or not be as prepared as I think about how I am now, like with this podcast, for example. Like I get so excited to prepare for an interview the next day. And I do show up early, and I'm excited to kind of like become part of the energy of what I'm about to experience in ways that I absolutely was not when I was, doing the 9-to-5 thing. Can you say more about like how that's changed for you? And we're going to talk a little bit more about what you're doing now, but how do you show up now versus then in general?
Yeah, it's so different. And it really is proof to me that what I did was the right thing to transition to a different career.
Yeah.
Because I wake up and I give workshops, I give retreats, and I am a writer myself. And I wake up very excited. I'm looking at my calendar. What do I have today? Even if it's something new, even if it's something scary that I've never done, I'm thinking about, for this workshop, maybe I could do this, maybe I could do that. I'll read something about something, this could work here. So it's just really I feel the energy around it, and I feel the ideas just arising very quickly. So it feels really good. Not that everything is perfect, and
Of course,
it's perfect, but it does. There's a feeling from deep within that I'm walking more in my purpose, but it just, ideas and energy. I'm always thinking, I'm very excited. I'm looking on my calendar. I was like, oh, this is coming up.
Yeah.
I never did that. I never did that in my previous career.
How long did you live with that knowing before you actually did something about it?
10 years. So I practiced law for 10 years, 4 as a public defender, and then 6 in private practice as a sole practitioner. And yes, I knew, as I said, I probably knew in law school, but I didn't know what I was going to do. Like, what if I quit law school? What am I going to do? I wasn't sure. So I was like, I'm going to plow through and convince myself that this is the thing for me. And I think I kind of did for a while, but not too long. It didn't really last long, but I continued on knowing that eventually I was going to have to move along. But at the time, it was what I had to do.
We touched upon the fact that you have an incredibly supportive partner, which again is like, that's such a bonus that maybe some people don't have. But I think about the other people in your life. You mentioned like your parents, like other people that you probably felt to some extent, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but maybe you were letting them down, or maybe they didn't understand. And not to mention the investment that is law school and like opening a practice and all those things. And I'm sure most of the skills are transferable to what you're doing now, thankfully. But can you talk a little bit about kind of how you navigated some of that pressure, whether it was maybe from yourself or other people in your life?
Yeah. Definitely my parents were puzzled.
I think about parents first, yeah.
Yeah. They were puzzled, confused. And I think, they were very proud of me that I became an attorney and that I, had accomplished that. And I think they loved telling people that,
Totally.
I was an attorney. And so I think they were very, well, you'll always go back. You can always go. You can stop for this little bit, but go back. Like, I think they thought of it as a phase. And I was like, it's not really a phase. This is just really not my thing. And then, what was interesting is I had one friend who said, you never smile anymore. And I'm a really smiley person. She was like, you just don't smile. And that was like another cue for me as well. But yeah, there were a lot of people that didn't understand it. Some neighbors, various people just didn't really get it. They were like, you put your time into this. This is what you said you were going to do. You did it. You achieved it. You passed the bar. And that's what life is. A lot of people, that's what life is. You do a job that you don't like and then you retire, but you live well or what have you. And so it was challenging kind of explaining to people what I'm writing now. I'm taking this certification to give workshops now. They're like, what? And
what is that? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And then, at the same time, I'm a mom of 3. And so I had started a Girl Scout troop. And so I was the Girl Scout troop leader, and we had 21 girls. And that was really important to me because as a Girl Scout myself, I had gotten to do all these things that I wouldn't have done, like horseback riding and camping, and been exposed to a lot. And so I wanted to do that for my daughter and other girls. And so I remember at a birthday party, the hostess was introducing all the parents and by what they do. I don't know why that was important at the birthday party, but she was like, this is George and he's an accountant, and this is Jenny and she's a producer, so it was like that. And so they came to me and they said, and this is Kimberly and she's a Girl Scout troop leader. And people kind of looked down their nose like, what? Like, that's not impressive. And I could feel it on the tip of my tongue wanting to say, no, I'm a lawyer and blah, blah, blah. And I resisted. I was like, I'm not going to do that or play that game. I'm happy with what I'm doing. I'm a Girl Scout troop leader right now, and that means a lot to me. And I'm going to own that, and I'm going to resist giving you some of my identity and tying it in with being a lawyer and that was hard. It was really uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But I stayed, I kind of was like, let me exercise that muscle of distancing myself from being so tied to be an attorney.
That's so big. I think that, like that scene that you just described, I feel like is played out for so many of us, especially when you're starting your own thing and it's not necessarily off the ground yet. Once it's off the ground, it's much more easy to talk about it, right? But as you're getting it off the ground, it's a very different conversation in a social setting, especially if you have a partner that's successful in there. You know, it's very easy for them to say what they do. And then you're like, oh, I'm over here, I'm a writer, or it's a career that people probably don't take as seriously as their corporate thing. Right. And so for you to be able to kind of just be in that moment and be able to resist the hesitation of saying like, oh, no, wait, I used to be an attorney. I was really successful in Los Angeles and all these things, right? And you're like, no, I'm actually just going to sit with that and let them have their moment of judgment, but that's not for me to deal with. Exactly. And I just think that that's so huge. And I think that more people need to hear stories like that, because I think that that's the story that like gives someone like me the confidence to keep going with what I'm doing, because I relate to what you're saying, and I'm not alone in having felt that way in a social setting before. It sounds like you gradually started to take courses and those sort of things, but do you feel like there was a single moment where you just couldn't keep doing the law thing? Or do you feel like it was just the slow burn that builds over time and then finally you're like, I'm out?
Yeah, it was kind of a slow burn over time. I stopped completely and sold my practice when my third child was born. And so some of that was 3 children under 5 was just too much to actually run a law.
Full-time job by itself.
Exactly, as well. But there were aspects of it where I just felt like I just, if I had a deadline, I'd meet it. Other than that, I really didn't want to think about my cases. I just let me really not. And I was like, okay, let me stay up all night and do this deadline. And I did start to feel like I'm not, someone else could do a better job with this case probably because they would be into it. Maybe.
That's got to be huge in like law, right? Because you want to be an advocate for someone.
Exactly. So, so there was an opportunity for me to return, and I kind of was doing some research for someone. I was like, well, let me try. I had taken a break from it for a while. Like, let me go back and see. And I went back and I was doing some research and some consulting. And I was like, oh no, absolutely not. Time did not heal that wound for me.
Interesting.
No. So I did try one more time to see, just to test. And it was a big no.
So I want to go back to the conversation. I'm thinking about you in that social setting where you have to resist the temptation to say like, no, I was an attorney before. But there's also a moment where you do start to tell people more actively that you're leaving law, you're starting to do more creative work. Talk a little bit about what that was like for you.
Yeah, well, I would start by, because what I started doing was writing a book. And I was infusing actually the book with a lot of the main character is an attorney, so a lot of material to work with, of course. And so I would tell people, well, I'm writing a book is actually what I'm doing right now. I'm writing a book. And they're, oh, you're right. Everybody's writing a book. And that seemed like just something very fluffy to people. And so
it's like having a podcast, right?
Exactly. So, I found that there are many people who were just excited about me writing a book. Wow, that's something. And, maybe they didn't know anyone who had ever written a book or something. So they were very excited. So there are many people who were really, really excited and supportive. But there were others who, again, it was just confusing. It seemed fluffy. It seemed like, you just are trying not to work. And that's, got to be a big girl and get back in there because that's what life is about. Life is hard. And you got to do your thing. No, but look at all the people out there. No one wants to be going. You got to get back into it.
Isn't that fascinating? Pause right there for a second, because that's the reason that we feel that shame almost of when we have to talk about our previous life. How have we been so conditioned, and it's American society in particular, that our identity is so tied to our careers that people have the audacity to even think that?
Yeah. It's amazing because it's such a kind of a sad view of what life.
It's tragic.
Yeah, is supposed to be, is that no one really loves their day. Like, you're spending most of your waking hours at whatever this is.
Your life.
Right. But no one likes it, and that's the way it's supposed to be for the most part. And I guess I just always refused to believe that, and I don't know why, because that's kind of was my family's attitude about things as well. So for some reason, I just resisted that, and it was probably, the Oprah Winfrey Y'all Love song reading 100%. I was doing, because it wasn't really coming from anyone, in my family or even friends. People are like, they don't like their job, looking forward to Fridays. Everybody's can't wait till Friday. I was like, there's a whole 5 days that I'd like to wake up and feel good about, what I'm going to do.
And it's not even just, it's Friday is like the best day, because Saturday evening is when you start to like the Sunday sets in, right?
That's right.
And I'm really fascinated by, because there's something about people like you and I and so many others that were doing that work in the background, right? Because we had like the Oprahs and the Yanlas and all those other folks in the background kind of whispering to us like, hey, there is this other life over here that you can, there's a different way to see God and spirituality. There's a different way to see how you pursue a career. And we were silently in the background, like doing those corporate gigs at the same time, but like secretly, like that whisper to us was like, no, this isn't what you're meant to be doing. This isn't, but you still have those very loud voices in your actual life that are like, no, it is. This is what we all have to do. We have to get through Monday through Friday, hate our lives, party on Friday nights, maybe Saturday, and then spend Sundays dreading everything. And so I'm really fascinated by those of us that, started to do that work so long ago, but then it just keeps whispering to you until it ultimately starts to come to fruition. What has surprised you about what carried over from law into your creative work? And then what aspects were you just like more than happy to leave behind?
Well, I was a trial lawyer, so I was handling, jury trials. And so in that, you are always telling a story. You are taking the facts that you've been given, you're taking what your client has said, and you're presenting a narrative to the jury that hopefully they will believe that, and right, exactly. And so you do, I say you're being creative, because the facts are the facts, and that's what you have to work with. But my job as a defense attorney was to find out where are the places of doubt, because that's what the burden is. It's beyond a reasonable doubt. And so can the prosecutor has all these facts, he or she's not trying to prove their case. But if I can find areas where there's some doubt, there's some uncertainty, we can't be certain that this person did this. That was my job, to present that. And so you do have to kind of develop a narrative, because people love stories. As humans, we love that, and that gets them engaged. So that definitely transferred over into writing for sure. And of course, I had a lot of material to work with, because I dealt with a lot of different interesting people and character situations. Absolutely. What I love that I was able to leave behind is in facilitating workshops and working with writers and other creatives. It is supportive and uplifting. It's an environment where we're all there to do something, and it's affirming. So it is not adversarial. It's not confrontational. And so I really like a more gentle, smooth environment that is relaxing. I am able to speak the way I'm speaking to you now in my regular voice, because I would speak literally, I would speak like, Your Honor, may I, so you're just doing that. And so that, and totally. So I'm just able to kind of just be embodied in what I'm doing. I'm able to actually follow the things that interest me. And then what I end up doing is doing a deep dive. So I follow whatever interests me. Eventually, if it captures my attention and I'm enchanted by something, I will do a deep dive and do some certification in it so that I can add it to so it's fun to be able to just pursue and follow what interests me, as opposed to here's a case and this is yours and this is what you're doing.
I think what I'm hearing underneath all that is just the energy and the space that you get to live in now is what was meant for you.
Yeah.
And I think that that's so beautiful. I I can imagine that there must have been some rewarding things, some rewarding moments in that previous life as well. Are there any aspects that you actually miss?
I do. I was thinking about this recently. I thought back to one case in particular, and then it reminded me of many people because I would say all of my clients as a public defender were just people who never really it was not an equal playing field.
Yeah.
It was going to be difficult for them from the start based on their life circumstances that they grew up in. And so I remember after one case, and actually we lost that case, but the client asking me to come back. So they've been taken back into lockup. And I guess he asked the bailiff, can we send her back, one more time? And so I was like, oh, I'm going to go if we lost the case. So I was like, what is, I'm going to get cursed out or something. And he just said, I really want to thank you for fighting for me. No one has ever fought for me the way you did. And and I had gone and gotten him like other clothes because I didn't want him to wear like the orange jumpsuit in court. So I had gone and bought some other clothes. Otherwise, they just bring him out in the jumpsuit. So I was like, brought some clothes so that he, didn't look like a prisoner in front of the jury. And so he just appreciated all of those things. And I was told that many times by people, whether we won or lost, thank you for fighting for me. And that is the thing that I felt really good about that work because I fought for people who didn't have a voice and who felt very powerless.
I think that's such a beautiful answer. And it's something that I think about a lot, especially right now with just where our country is, but also specifically like the criminal justice system. And so many people that, to your point, it's just circumstantial. It's, their lives just were on a completely different path than so many of us. But I want people like you in roles like that, right? I want people that are good people, that care about helping people. And I just worry that there aren't enough really good people that work in that realm, especially anymore. I feel the same way about like going into politics, right? Because I think it used to be people that had like really good intentions about wanting to do right by, for their fellow man. And I think now it's just so toxic. Like, why would you want to go into it? And I feel like I'm starting to see law similarly. Do you share that perspective? Do you feel like we're still okay because there's enough good people left?
Yeah, I am in touch with and still friends with many people that I especially came in with. We all came in together. And so then now they've been doing it a good 20 years or something.
They're still part of the grind.
And they're still in it. And they stayed with it. And some of it is they're great people. They care. They're dedicated. And they're just fighting tooth and nail. There are many people like that there. The difference between them and me is one of the differences is they're able to kind of find that balance where they're able to set it aside at night and then live their lives and then come back and be like just as vicious as they need to be. So for me, I was unable to kind of stop thinking about it all the time. So they are able to find a healthy balance. So there are many people that are just out there really doing that good work, and I respect them so much.
Yeah, that's good to hear, and same. Much respect. That's actually like a very recurring theme in a lot of my recent conversations with folks is just the sentiment of there's some of us that when we were part of the corporate world, we're like highly sensitive. I don't want to say like overly caring, but I can't think of a better phrase right now. And then there's people that are also just as good at their jobs as we were, but they're able to kind of turn that off at 5 o'clock. Or if they can't turn it off, they don't carry it with them in the same way, right? It's not impacting their voice outside of the courtroom. I'm sure there's someone listening right now that's kind of in the midst of a transition in their life. I think you're a very specific identity shift from trial lawyer to writer and creativity coach. What was the hardest part of that? Not logistically, but like how it felt.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is that like going into law or any profession, whether it's accounting or medicine or tech, science, research, there's kind of a defined path. You get your bachelor's degree and then your advanced degree or PhD, master's, what have you, MBA. And then you get a job doing that, and then you start to move up. So it can feel kind of linear. And
Yep.
it's kind of a path which is going to vary somewhat, but it's, you can feel that so for this, there has not been a linear path. It's been a very windy route. And so just to kind of expect that as you are creating something new, there might not be a pat way. You might be forging your own way. And just to kind of trust yourself and, again, follow the spark, your own interests, and give those things all the energy that you feel they're calling for from you. That has been the main thing. It has not been linear. It has not been like, okay, I'm going to write this book and then I'm going to get it has been kind of all over the place, and you have to be kind of ready for different opportunities to come at you at different times, and be ready to go if they interest you.
I think that agility is definitely important, but I think about the linear path that you talk about, and that's kind of another thing that's come up in a lot of my conversations recently, where it's like the path that used to appear to be linear no longer is. And so how are we navigating that now? And I think that it almost leaves an opening for conversations like this in a brand new way, because people are losing jobs in areas like tech. I point to specifically because I think that's kind of on the forefront right now, and they can't go back to those jobs because those jobs don't exist anymore. And so that linear path that you speak of is broken down. And so it's really causing people to reflect on like, what should I do next? Your options are almost limited, but that's not so limiting, right? Because it opens up so many other doors potentially if you see it that way. I'm curious if you could say more about like your moments of real doubt, because I think the fact that you have been able to navigate that seemingly, I think that's what maybe some people listening right now need to hear.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because sometimes I can feel, I am definitely someone that can feel that sense of imposter syndrome sometimes. So I have a law degree, but I do not have a degree, an MFA in creative writing. And I'm not really that interested in going and getting one of those. I don't know that I'm interested in anymore in formal academia and writing papers about things I don't care about anymore.
Understandably.
Right. Yeah. And so in terms of writing a book and teaching writing, sometimes I do feel like, do I have, and I have a bunch of certifications, but do I have the goods to really deliver this product or this retreat, this workshop, this course? And so there can be a lot of uncertainty and doubt and just wondering and kind of, feeling that way, because sometimes hesitant. I've decided I could just keep pushing through. I don't consider myself fearless. I just work through the fear and try to not let it rule me. And then another thing that I do is an exercise, and I like to do this with participants in my workshops, is I think back to the bold things that I did in my first career, like in my 20s. What were some of the really things that maybe there were naysayers? So opening my own practice, or moving to LA and not knowing anybody and working in the court downtown. We all have things where we have been heroic, and sometimes we don't think about those things. And especially in your 20s, you may sometimes feel that sense of invincibility. So you're just doing stuff, and then later you get older and you may not, step out and do those things. And so I try to recall some of those things and say, okay, you did this, when you were 25 or 28. So definitely you could pull that back up and do that, or apply that to something else now. But it can be tough. I have a lot of uncertainty, a lot of not always feeling on solid ground, but I just keep moving forward. I keep showing up and trusting my intuition, which is really the muscle that I have developed over the course of this. is trusting that, because I feel that voice is really like the Kimberly within, the divine within that is speaking and telling me what I'm supposed to do. And as long as I'm listening to that, I feel like things will come, the right things will come.
People listening right now can't see me, but I'm nodding along so much to everything you just said, because I think about imposter syndrome specifically, right? And I think we all know people in our lives that are people, especially in our careers, that should absolutely have imposter syndrome, but do not. And then there's those of us that like, I definitely hear someone like you speak and I'm like, what? You absolutely should not have imposter syndrome. You're so articulate and you're so intelligent and you bring so much of that experience with you every moment. It's never people like you that get over the imposter syndrome, right? Or me, right? Like I feel the same way about myself, because it's like, I've seen so many people that I'm just like, why do you have all this confidence when you know nothing? Like, it's so infuriating.
Yes.
Even when you're doing something you love, I think that burnout is still possible, right? And so I'm curious if you've experienced any of that in your creative work and how you navigate that.
Yeah. So I think, similar to how you're saying, like, you're excited about, interviewing people. And so I can wake up and like, okay, this workshop, what is it? And I was like, at some point it can, because it's also in workshops and retreats, I'm holding space for people and different things come up. We're writing, we're journaling. I also offer a process called soul collage, where we're creating collages and we're writing with them. And so emotions and different things come up. And so you're holding space for people and welcoming whatever comes. And so it can be, I have found sometimes I'm so just, again, thinking about it all the time, kind of the same things that I was doing as a lawyer. So I think that's probably just the cloth that I'm made of, like whatever it is. That is, again, can be a pitfall, because it can be not having that healthy balance of where I'm all the time. And especially now with the technology, you can be doing it all at all hours. You can be, looking and thinking about it and planning something. And so I'm trying to make sure that I don't get to that place by having some, scheduling some, like in the morning, like this morning, I actually did my routine. It's hard sometimes, but I have a routine of meditation, a little bit of journaling and some reading and a little workout before I, off to the races on writing or my workshops. And so it's about building in some healthy restorative routines, because I am concerned about that. I was like, if I keep kind of going at this rate where 24 hours a day, I'm thinking about it, I'm never really distancing myself ever, then I am going to burn out. Even though I love this, I think it's still a possibility, because we all need rest and we all need time away. I have tried to designate one weekend a month as decompression weekend.
Oh, I love that.
I just don't do anything related to writing or workshops or anything at all. As much as I love them, just take a break. And when I am able to do that, I find I come back so refreshed and so like kind of smoothed out.
Yeah, I'm really with you on the routine aspect of things, especially when you work for yourself, right? It's very easy for the day to escape you, as it were. I love that you have that and that you need that, and especially the downtime. Like, we don't schedule enough downtime in our lives. So good on you for figuring that out.
I'm trying.
We're all trying our best. I want to talk just really quick about people pleasing and saying yes. I think there's a lot of creative people that find ourselves kind of in that place, especially when you're building something new. So talk about how maybe you've struggled with some of that and what's been hard for you about setting limits in this chapter of your life.
Yeah, I am definitely been a people pleaser my whole life. Was raised to be that way probably. And it has been tough, because when people, especially when you're getting going, people are asking you to do this, do that, especially do this for free for this group. You'll get exposure, go lug all your stuff across town. And
for free, yeah.
Exactly. And so at the beginning, I was doing it just because I wanted to build a resume of some engagements and different things. And then as time has gone on, I think it is valuable to do a number of things just to get going, especially in a new field. But over time, I have really, again, it's back to this career of my own making. And I constantly have to remind myself that this is something I'm designing. And so I have the right to choose. It's sometimes we don't feel we have the right to. I have the right to choose whether this is in alignment with what I want for myself. I don't want to look at my calendar for the week and feel like I can't wait till Friday, because then I'm right back where I was.
Totally.
First.
100%.
So it's hard for me to say no. Like if you're to ask me something right now, it's hard for me to say just a straight no to you right now. So what I have found is, because I'm a people pleaser, so what I found I'll do is I was just like, no, let me think about it. And then eventually I'll say no. It's not something that I want to do. I'm trying not to make on the spot decisions so that I can really be intentional with what I'm choosing. Is it something I want to do? Is it going to be fulfilling? Is it serving, whatever purpose for myself as well? And so that is a constant thing that I am working with. But I have felt very proud of myself recently for just saying no. And it's interesting because people do respect that. People respect when you set boundaries.
It's so hard to, like, especially when you're a kind person. And I think that's where it stems from. I really do believe that, like, if you're like a kind, good-natured person, you just don't want to upset people or disappoint them. Where and how did you draw that line?
Yeah, if I feel that it's going to be helpful, or of course I want to serve the community or something, there's something there that I feel is going to be helpful to a population or something that maybe I don't normally get to serve, it can be tough. But a lot of it is about like worth and value and some of those things as well that play into it. And, I want people to realize that what I am doing has a value to it. And so I kind of try to, if people are approaching me with, oh, just come. And, I was like, well, if it's not something that for some reason I want this on my resume, on my CV, or it's something that I feel I want to give to this audience, and it's more like they could probably pay, but they're hoping I'm going to do it for free, I kind of draw the line. I just kind of look at each opportunity, and in the same way, it's just, this is something I'm designing for myself. And so I want to enjoy this. I don't want it to become drudgery again. So that same voice that told me that law, I need to eventually move along from that, is that same voice that I listen to. And when I hear that no comes up real fast sometimes. And then, as you said, you kind of logically start to talk your way out of it. And I try to lean back into intuition, because I can feel myself talking, well, you could do this, as you said, you could make this work. Well, you could just do this one time. If you're negotiating with yourself on it, it's not the thing.
And I love what you said too about just the idea of once you start to do that, your calendar now is suddenly full of things that you don't want to do again. And you're just right back where you started before, only now it's a bigger mess because it's one that you definitively created on your own.
Exactly.
But that's the journey. And I think like making those definitive or not maybe definitive initially decisions are that's the beauty of this journey. And that's why I love kind of like the messiness of some of these conversations. Mm-hmm. I want to ask you briefly about fear, because I think that that's something that in our back and forth prior to your interview, you said something that really resonated with me. I'm going to read it. You said that your story speaks to anyone who feels an inner calling and may be experiencing fear, but are more concerned with regrets they may have if they don't step out and follow the less traveled path. I think there's probably a lot of people listening to this that are pursuing that unconventional path. And, like I said, that speaks to me personally, and I'm sure many others. So say more about that.
Well, it is, creating a work of art, a book, and putting it out there is for people too. And I'm kind of constantly, I've trained myself. I haven't looked today at the reviews on Amazon of my book. So this is probably the longest I've gone without looking, like into the day. Putting something out, you're putting your heart out into the world. You are also leaving a career that seemed steady and going into something that is kind of amorphous is scary, and you don't feel you don't have that certainty that you are going to be able to be successful. It's like, am I going to be successful or not? We don't know. And so for me, I just knew that if I continued to practice law and dread going, I could drag myself in there. I could still be doing that now, but I would have missed out really on my life, on my calling, on my purpose, and kind of gone with the grain that says, yeah, we're all supposed to be miserable until you retire, look forward to retirement. And so I guess I just felt that life is too precious to live that way. And it just really wasn't going to work for me to continue on that path. So I had to try something else, even if it failed. There's a great quote by Nelson Mandela that I love. You probably heard it. I either win or learn. I never lose. Mm-hmm. And I love that because in law, it's you win or lose.
Yeah.
So one or the other. But I've adopted that quote as, even if I fail at what I'm doing, I've learned something for the next step. And so I kind of try to deal with fear that way, that I'll send this proposal out, I'll get it, or I will learn what to do for the next one, and I'll be better for the next one. And so I'm going to be fearful either way, but at least I know there's something for me to learn from each situation. And that's what I've done when there's been a workshop and an evaluation has come in, like, oh, she didn't do this, especially when I was first starting out. I learned something. So you start to master what you're doing as you go. So it's not without fear. It doesn't go away. I don't feel fearless. I just acknowledge it and try to use it as fuel and know that whatever happens, I'm going to learn something.
That's so beautiful. And it's interesting because I try to like end all these conversations on a positive note. I think they're mostly positive conversations, but what has you hopeful right now about the world, just in general?
I am feeling hopeful. I mean, it can be hard. We have to, I've definitely acknowledged it. But what I've seen is people coming together. There has been, it seems like a level of unity that we have seen definitely here in Los Angeles. We had the fires last year, just a little over a year ago. And so you had communities coming together. And then with all the other things that have been going on, I have seen people banding together. I've seen people taking more interest in restorative practices and kind of turning within. I think this has caused people to be maybe more introspective, and they are looking for ways to live in a more balanced way. So it seems like it has resulted in like a going within to grow in personal development, but also reaching out and developing connections. So I guess if that's what it took for us to get there, then I guess that's
Kimberly, thank you so much. Your journey is it's incredibly inspiring, and I really want to thank you for sharing it with us. Please let the listeners know how they get connected with you and learn more about your work.
Okay, well, thanks so much, Sean. It has been a pleasure. Thank you for having me on your podcast. It's been a great conversation. And folks can find me on my website at kimberlylee.me and on Instagram at klcreatrix. And my book is Have You Seen Him? It's a thriller. Check it out. It's a page turner. And I just would love to connect with anyone. Thank you.
Thanks for spending some time with me today. Choosing to step off autopilot and think differently about your life takes work, and I don't take it lightly that you're here. If today's episode resonated, the best way to support the show is to share it with someone who might need to hear it. And whenever you're ready to go deeper, whether through free worksheets, guided audio reflections, or one-on-one coaching, you can find everything over at thinkoutsideThelines.com. Be well, and I'll catch you next time.